As promised in our AM video, we're going to talk Mike McCarthy in today's PM video, I should say. Welcome into Saints Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Trizzy Girouard. Mike McCarthy is not expected to return to the Dallas Cowboys. And you see it right here, ladies and gentlemen. He's expected to be a candidate for the New Orleans Saints. So I want you to share your thoughts for me, Who Dat Nation. Should the black and gold hire Mike McCarthy? Get down in the comments section, share your thoughts, and I'm going to be interacting with each and every one of you that sounds off and shares your opinion. So coming up in today's video, we're going to discuss should the Saints hire Mike McCarthy? And then we're also going to talk about the latest updates around the head coaching search. Mickey Loomis, the Saints general manager, he spoke to media to do like an end of the season, press conference, if you will. And then yet earlier in today's video, in the AM video, I asked for everyone who hung around the entire show to give me a Golden Gang comment. So I'm going to give some shout outs to some real ones. Now let's talk about Mike McCarthy, the former head coach for the Dallas Cowboys. They are letting him leave. He is now a free agent. He can sign elsewhere. Technically, he can't interview until January 14th. His contract is set to expire at midnight. This video filmed on Monday, January 13th around 5 p.m. Now, I do think with Mike McCarthy, he could be an intriguing option, and I don't want us to sit here and just blow it up and say absolutely not. Like, I don't think that the New Orleans Saints are too good for Mike McCarthy, if that makes any sense. But, I do think that there is something to say about 3 straight 12-win seasons, and I do think that there is something to say about the New Orleans Saints possibly adding in a familiar face. This is a guy who at one point in time was the offensive coordinator in New Orleans. He also is a Super Bowl champion. He also has a pretty extensive resume, which we'll look at in a moment. But from 2000 to 2004, he was the OC. And listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. He was the offensive coordinator when the Saints won their first playoff game in 2000 under Mike McCarthy. They finished with a top 10 offense. In fact, the New Orleans Saints offense ranked in the top 10 every single year under Mike McCarthy. And under McCarthy, the Saints offense set 25 individual and team records. In 2002, the Saints led the NFC in scoring. And in 2003, the Saints scored 340 points, which is the 8th highest in franchise history. So as the OC, Mike McCarthy did have success in the Big Easy. But that was all the way in 2000. That was 20-plus years ago at this point. So, the offense in the league and how the offense is managed and run and how schemes have changed are very, very different than what they were 20 years ago. And, some interesting stats around Mike McCarthy's Super Bowl team. I mean, he's been a part of some really successful offenses, not just with the Saints, not just with the Packers, but also with the Cowboys too. But I found this stat extremely interesting. The Packers never lost a game by more than 4 points and never trailed by more than 7 the entire season, becoming the only team since the AFL-NFL merger in 1970 to accomplish this. All 6 of their regular season losses were by a combined 20 points. And I think that that's pretty cool when it comes to Mike McCarthy. I think that he is a smart head coach. I think he is a quality coach in the league, and I do believe he deserves to be a head coach in the National Football League. I mean, look at the resume. 174, 112, and 2. That's a typo right there. That's my fault. 174, 112, and 2 as an overall record. A playoff record of 11-11. He has 4 NFC Championship game appearances. He was a Super Bowl champion in Super Bowl 45. Shout out to Jeremy Chugs for fixing that. And then, of course, 8 division titles over the course of his entire resume as a head coach in the league. I mean, Mike McCarthy has done it all. He has the hardware. He has the what's the word I'm looking for? He has the experience, and he has the accomplishments in order to prove that he could be a good head coach and that he has been a good head coach. But, I mean, as of right now, the New Orleans Saints haven't formally requested to interview him. The Bears put in a request, but the Saints have not. And at the time of filming this video, that's still the case. He could still be requested, and I do believe the Saints will request him at some point in time. Ian Rappaport saying that. Adam Schefter saying that, Pat McAfee saying that, Nick Underhill saying that. So, I do think that Mike McCarthy is a target for the New Orleans Saints. And in case you didn't know this, they might actually have a tie, and not a tie, but they actually might be able to do business pretty easily with Mike McCarthy. He changed agents, and his new agent is now Don Yee, who is Sean Payton's agent. And if you remember Sean Payton, he was the head coach for the New Orleans Saints for a very long time. So Don Yee did business with the New Orleans Saints and Mickey Loomis for a very long time. So maybe this is something that actually could come to fruition a little bit easier than what we're giving it credit for. And maybe this is something that actually could potentially happen and happen pretty easily when it's all said and done. But, my take on Mike McCarthy, it's not that I dislike him as an option. I'm just more in the camp of something fresh. I think that there are worse options that the Saints are interviewing, like Mike Kafka and Kellen Moore. I just would prefer to go with something fresh. I like the idea of somebody who's going to be around for a while, somebody who's going to be the next great young head coach. I know Aaron Glenn isn't super young, but, the point still stands. Young in his coaching career. And I do think that Joe Brady has a lot to offer. I think Cliff Kingsbury has a lot to offer. And I don't think that Mike McCarthy is a horrible, terrible, no good decision. I just think that there are better options. And to be totally honest, I just want something fresh. And, for a guy who's a fan of a team that's pretty much just been the same thing since the early 2000s, can you blame me? Not really. Now, coming up, we got updates on the head coaching search, I should say. Mickey Loomis, like I mentioned, he spoke to media, so we're going to dive into what he said. He gave some insight. He talked about the head coach search for this upcoming offseason, but really quick, got to give a big-time shout-out to Tushy. Let's keep that hiney shiny. This is one of my favorite sponsors we have here at Chat Sports, and get started with Tushy. And finally, a New Year's resolution that isn't a pain in the ass. Tushy bidets fit on your toilet in under 10 minutes, improving your health and saving you time and money every time you take a seat on your porcelain throne. And I love my Tushy bidet, and so does producer Jeremy Chuggs. And I can tell you, we both use it every single day and sometimes multiple times a day. The Tushy bidet easily attaches to your toilet without the need for additional plumbing or electricity. And like I said, it only takes 10 minutes to complete. It's so easy, anyone can do it. And it's also so easy to use. You just sit down, do your business, and then turn the knob for a refreshing stream of clean water. And once you're done, simply pat dry with toilet paper. Instantly improve your health from the bottom up. For a limited time, our listeners get 10% off their first bidet order when you use code CHAT at checkout. That's 10% off your first bidet order at hellotushy.com with promo code CHAT. That's code CHAT to keep that hiney shiny. Show us some love and show Tushy some love. Show your hiney some love and get started with the link in the comment section and description of this video. All right, now let's talk about it. Mickey Loomis discussing the head coach search. I thought this is pretty interesting, and I think that this is a pretty cool update. Not to say that the Saints head coach, when Dennis Allen was hired, not to say he didn't get control of the hiring process of his staff, but Mickey Loomis echoing and reiterating and confirming the fact that whoever the next head coach will be and whoever the next head coach hire is, they're going to have complete freedom to build their staff. So it doesn't matter if an offensive mind, it doesn't matter if it's of a defensive mind. The new head coach is going to be able to build their staff from the ground up. And I think that that's the right way of going about business. I don't think that there's any reason to put any limitations or to, put your thumb on any sort of hiring or decision making for a new head coach. If we're going to let a new guy come in and try to turn things around, you got to let him have control. But what about the quarterback position? Well, the head coach is also going to have an opinion and have insight there as well. Loomis saying that the next head coach will play a big part in deciding what to do at quarterback. So Derek Carr, maybe he returns. Maybe the Saints decide to cut him. That's a decision for the next head coach. So we're not going to have an idea of what's going to happen with Derek Carr until one of these names is hired. And, of course, there could be other names that get added to the mix, but this is the updated list of names that the New Orleans Saints are going to be interviewing. Obviously, Mike McCarthy, like I mentioned earlier, has not been confirmed to be interviewing. However, I do think that the Saints will add his name to the list, and I do think that the Saints will add a handful of more names to the list. Albert Breer adding At the Saints' next set of scheduled interviews comes on Friday and Saturday, and they'll sit down with Cliff Kingsbury, Kellen Moore, and Joe Brady. And then, like we've talked about this entire video, they could also bring in now ex-head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, Mike McCarthy. So expect them to be interviewed. Expect them to, give some updates around the head coaching search. Like, I do think that with Cliff Kingsbury, Kellen Moore, and Joe Brady, all of those will be virtual interviews because all three of those teams are still alive in the postseason. So, that is something just to note. Doesn't really make a difference, but they are still alive. There's going to be focused on the task at hand, which is winning playoff games for their respective teams. But I do think that it's interesting that Clint Kubiak is getting interviews with a lot of teams. I mean, now the Seattle Seahawks and the Cleveland Browns have shown interest in Clint Kubiak. So to me, I think that this has some meaning. I think that this isn't just nothing. I think that this doesn't necessarily guarantee that the Saints are keeping Clint Kubiak. If they wanted to keep him back, they would just decline any interviews. And, I do think that this could mean that the New Orleans Saints are leaning offensive-minded head coach. For me personally, I do think when it comes down to the Saints head coaching search, I would prefer an offensive-minded guy, and I would like a quarterback whisperer. I would like a play-calling guru. That would be my ideal situation. But I also love the idea of going with Aaron Glenn, and every single day that passes, I get more okay with that option. But the fact that they're letting Clint Kubiak go and interview elsewhere, maybe that means that they're okay with losing him. Maybe that means that they're wanting an offensive guy. But either way, it doesn't matter what they're doing. It's just more of the conversation that they are, letting the head coach, whoever that is, they're going to let him build the staff. They're not trying to hold Clint Kubiak around. They're not trying to keep him in their pocket. They're not trying to hold him back and keep him in New Orleans. They're going to let him go and do his process. If the interview process all gets said and done and Clint Kubiak returns, awesome, cool, sweet. But if they go offensive-minded guy, don't expect that to be the case. If they go defense, maybe, but we'll have to see. Now, this has been a discussion in the Chat Sports studio that I've had in the office with some of my coworkers. Would you rather go Darren Rizzi or Mike McCarthy to be the Saints head coach? I personally am in the camp of Darren Rizzi. He's just, like I said, something new, something fresh. And on top of that, he's already in the building. The Saints players already love him. And, everywhere Mike McCarthy's been, the coaching staff and the players have liked him as well. So I think that's something cool about each guy. But for me personally, give me Darren Rizzi just because I love the Rizzler. And I'm just going to be a little bit biased and, F it. Why not? But I want you to share your thoughts. And as promised, we got to give shout-outs to those of you who commented Golden Gang. The Golden Gang is those of you who subscribe and watch every single video from beginning to end. So I want to give a special shout-out to Darrell Theodore, Jerry G, Big Coley, Mir Comet, and Tome Reader. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Golden Gang. Thank you guys so much for watching the entire video. And thank you to everyone who watched today's show. I really appreciate everyone for tuning in and making us a part of their day. If you want more content in between these videos, hit me up on social media, on Instagram and on X and on TikTok. I'm on all three platforms. TikTok might be on the way out, but until then, I'm going to still keep posting videos. So Saints fans, y'all stay golden. We'll see you next time.